everybody. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the new and improved episode of the Tommy Williams Show. This is episode number 24, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining in. We have the pleasure of meeting with the Honorable Lew Yevoli out of New York. And also, you've had the pleasure of meeting, and I've been in the company of none other than Saxman Danny Rock-Malowitz, my buddy, my friend for many, many years, who's actually helps out on the show periodically, and he's on there this evening to bring on his cousin, Lew. And we're gonna actually meet with Lew in tandem and find out more about him and all that he's done for the nation, folks. Did you hear me? Nation. So without further ado, I wanna bring those two gentlemen on. Welcome to the show.
And I just wanna say one thing. You don't have to include this in the final edit. I'd like them to put some light on in the room so we could see the Honorable Lew Yevoli better. So please put
that?
Oh, that looks so much.
You have to get close. You want him closer, Danny?
No, I'm fine. Slant that computer down a little bit so we can.
Yeah, you gotta come.
Handsome self. Okay, excellent. Okay. All right. So my name's Dan Rock-Malowitz, and I'm honored to present the Honorable Lew Yevoli, who is also my cousin. I'd just like to ask you some simple questions like, who did you work for when you first started?
A fellow by the name of Michael N. Petito. He was the supervisor of the town of Oyster Bay. Town of Oyster Bay has about 315,000 residents. It's not a small town.
And
all right, Oyster Bay. Very familiar with Oyster Bay. That's sensational. And how's the weather up there right now?
Not a bad day today. A little cool, but it's an attractive day. Let's say that. It will get so warm sooner or later.
Yeah. That's the one thing that seems to be consistent is the weather, because everything else seems like it's been running amok over the past year and a half, hasn't it?
Politics is certainly not consistent. That's for sure.
Yeah. So it's great having you on. So tell us, what is it that you did for the state, for the city, and what did your job entail, Lew?
Well, the first thing, I started out as a town councilman. They run at large. So in other words, you're running in that entire 315,000 populous township. After that, I was elected to the New York State Assembly, and I was there for 9 terms. After that, I became the town supervisor, only the second Democrat in the history of the town of Oyster Bay to ever be elected supervisor. The town was founded in 1653, so that gives you an idea. It was the bastion of the Republican Party, no question about it. Yeah.
Wow.
But the experiences were interesting. When I began, we had no money, no finances. So it was my wife, Carol, and I, and a very small group of volunteers. And I'm running for town council. And at that time, the Nassau County GOP was considered the strongest Republican organization in the country. Yeah, incredible. So no one really gave me a chance.
Wow.
But because of Carol, we did things together. We had a very small group of people.
Headquarters in the den?
In the end, we had our headquarters in the den of our home. We printed literature on something that doesn't even exist anymore. It was called a Gestetner machine. Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. And they kind of laughed at, well, how's he going to win this campaign? There's no money for literature. He hasn't got this huge following. And we own everything but literally the curtains on the polling booth in those days.
Let me ask you this, because I can't help but ask. My wife used to be with a collectibles show. Did you manage to keep any of that equipment that you started out with?
No, the Gestetner machine is long gone. You're right. I should have saved some of it.
I don't know if you remember. What was the name, Nate? Personal FX. At FX, it was on Fox Cable. It used to be a great show, antiquing and all that across the. At any rate, that's something that's serious startup and mom and popping it, and then talk about the journey from there.
What happened was
I'm enamored.
I shocked everyone. Well, we shocked everyone, and I won the election for town council. So that was a 4-year term. I served 4 years, and I was getting an awful lot of press because The town board was comprised of 6 Republicans and me. And everything is done by majority vote.
Sure.
So I had the one dissenting vote, and I was like the watchdog. So I was constantly making the newspapers by virtue of the position that I held. The paper at the time was Newsday and still in existence. It's the most read paper in Nassau County. It's no question about that. But anyway, we do the town council, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And for whatever the reasons are, the public is relating to me. So when it comes time to run for the New York State Assembly, I have a pretty decent following after 4 years as a council person. So now Carol and we have more volunteers than we had originally. And I run against the Republican incumbent for the state assembly. And lo and behold, I win the seat for the state assembly against an incumbent Republican, which no one thought could happen either. So I became the first Democrat from this area ever elected to the New York State Assembly. And from there, you know, I actually had 9 terms, very productive terms. I enjoyed it fully. And, you know, you learn about the underbelly of politics as a result of it. Politics is a rough and tumble game. It doesn't have to be a game.
But
what were some of the, hey Lou, what were some of the laws and some of the things that were changed in your regime during your term?
Well, okay,
that are still in place that you could say, hey, yeah, we did that.
Okay. Right. What happened was, it was an experience for me. I'll just try to give it to you briefly.
Sure.
When I was in the New York State Assembly, we, meaning the Democratic Party, had complete control of the lower house, the state assembly. The upper house, being the Senate, was always in control of the Republicans. So whenever you wanted to get anything accomplished, the first governor I served with was Hugh Carey. He was there for 2 terms. Then I served with Mario Cuomo, who was there for 3 terms. So I had a Democratic governor, but no matter what laws I would introduce, I had to have a Senate sponsor, because if I couldn't get it through the Senate, it could never get to the governor's desk for his signature. So the one thing, I'm proud of a lot of things, but Nassau and Suffolk County are what's known as a sole source aquifer area. That may sound strange to some people, but there are several areas in the country like that. All of the water, the potable water that you cook with, that you drink, and you bathe with, comes from underground aquifers that are left over from the glacier thousands of years ago. And there was very little being done to protect the aquifer. So I wound up getting what is known as the Sole Source Aquifer Bill that gave us great control over what you can build and what you can do on ground if it's going to violate the integrity of the aquifer. That was a good one. A lot of tax laws, reduction in the state personal income tax, laws regarding, I think the first one in the history of the country, to the best of my knowledge, was a law I introduced that allowed you to set aside money that you could save for your children's college education tax-free. So, you know, they were just interesting things.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. And, you know, having been an educator for a long time, I can imagine that aquifer, am I pronouncing it correctly, aquifer?
Aquifer, A-Q-U-I-F-E-R, aquifer. Aqua like water,
aquifer.
And fur.
Yes, fur. Okay. So is that still in existence right now? It is still?
Oh yeah, no, that's in existence. Yeah, I received a plaque and everything else, and other states that had similar problems would write to me and ask for a copy of the law, and they would enact their version of it.
That sounds quite historical. I mean, you know, what I was getting at is that, you know, I could imagine the youth of today are still writing about that aquifer. Because that's, you know, people always talk about preserving the resources, and especially the natural resources. So that's, you really are stapled into history.
The banning of landfills on Long Island. Again, you pile that garbage up, and what happens is, as it rains, it leaches through the garbage and into the ground, which ultimately is going to affect the aquifer. So we passed that legislation too. Me and another legislator by the name of May Newberger, who's deceased, and we authored that law together. We put a lot of time in on it. And there was a lot of controversy over it. Well, if you're going to ban garbage from being just stored, What are we going to do with it? Well, there are a lot of things you can do. You incinerate a lot of it, but you still have an ash residue. And in some instances, you're going to have it trucked out. Simple as that. So, these are things that they're not the sexiest kind of bills that you can think of, but they are important. It's important legislation.
Very important.
I love the public. The public is a lot brighter than most people give them credit for being. And that's where I think you develop a rapport with the public, and they realize that you're really just like they are. You're not just some politician who's running for office and wants to be president before they even finish the office they're in.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of civility in those days. It doesn't exist anymore, and that's unfortunate.
What would the health situation be like in Long Island, New York, had the aquifer bill not have passed?
Well, what would happen is ultimately you would wind up with a contaminated aquifer. There's 3 aquifers underground in Nassau and Suffolk County. The first one is called the glacial aquifer. That's been polluted for years. No one drinks that water. You can't. It's not pumped. Can't do anything with it. You have the middle layer, which is where we get most of our potable water. And there's a third layer underneath that, which is going to provide water for thousands of years from now. So the 2 layers are protected, no question about it. And it was a good thing because it took into consideration the future as well as the present. And that sometimes is something that legislators or elected officials don't grasp the concept. You're not legislating just for today. You're legislating for what's going to happen tomorrow as well, in many instances.
Well, you mentioned some pretty big names with Cuomo and others. Yeah. What was it like working with Cuomo?
Tell him.
Well, we didn't have the most harmonious relationship. He was an extremely bright individual, probably one of the brightest people I've ever met. The problem that I had, God rest his soul, is that Mario Cuomo knew more than anyone else on the planet. Therefore, if you disagreed with him, you didn't know what you were talking about. So I always found that fascinating because he was extremely bright. There's no question about it. Frankly, in my opinion, at one point, he was rumored to be a candidate for the United States Supreme Court. He would have been, in my opinion, an outstanding justice in the Supreme Court. You might not agree with every decision that he made, but it would be made with intelligence and based on the United States Constitution. I had a great relationship with Ed Koch, who was the mayor, and I supported him in a primary, and we became very close. And I was on his list of preferred individuals to be lieutenant governor had he won the primary. Well, he didn't win the primary, so I never became lieutenant governor. But it was interesting. Hugh Carey was an outstanding governor, great administrator. He knew how to run, and we were in, at that time, we had some serious problems. New York was on the brink of bankruptcy, and have a special commission appointed, and Carey really rose to the forefront. And Cuomo had the ability to do that too. They were good governors, solid governors. And again, realizing that you had a split situation, Democrats in control of the Assembly, Republicans in control of the Senate. Everyone had to sit down and make compromises. And that may sound like an awful word to some people, but I always use this as an example. If Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill could get together, they are philosophically miles apart, but they both knew one thing. In order for government to function, they had to meet, they had to determine what was best for the general public, and each side had to give a little bit. Neither one of them got everything that they wanted. And the government was running fine. Today, it's they hate each other. I've never seen anything like this, where there's absolute hatred. They can't even sit down and speak to each other. You can't run government that way. It's not the way it's supposed to be. Sorry to go on and on, but
yes.
What were your dealings with Chuck Schumer? Did you work with Chuck Schumer?
Yeah, he sat in front of me for, I guess, 5 or 6 years in the state assembly. Very bright guy. He was always liberal. My problem with Chuck Schumer today is that he seems to have caved into the extreme left. It has taken over the Democratic Party. I'm talking about the AOCs of the world and Iliad Omar and the rest of them, the squad. And, they preach things that are foreign to me, to be perfectly honest with you. They're anti-Semitic. They don't like the United States of America. And that's all they talk about. They don't talk about anything constructive. If you think just having trillions of dollars in aid is constructive, no, it can be very destructive. The problem is a simple one. Show me any country in history where socialism has been the form of government and you see a country that's failed, right? Whether it's Argentina, whether it's Venezuela, you can go right on down the list. It doesn't work. So you've got to have a form of government that does everything it's supposed to do, but without it being a socialistic government.
Okay.
And it's beyond being socialism.
You mentioned Argentina.
Yeah.
Shame what's going on and what's going on out in Colombia right now and places.
Yeah, it's
a perfect example.
It's a shame. Venezuela, which was an oil-rich country, right? And the residents had a pretty decent lifestyle. There's always dictatorships, which are not good, in my opinion, but nevertheless, it existed. Well, today, it's worse off than it ever was. There's no money. It's gotten to an extreme that's total insanity. And yet, a wealthy country becomes one of the poorest countries. That makes no sense. Something's radically wrong when that happens. Oil-rich country like that doesn't make any sense, but it's the government. Argentina's always tried, with Perón, you can go back, 60, 70 years, and meant well. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying they weren't well-intentioned, but it hasn't worked. Colombia, it doesn't work.
What can we do to make our economy better?
What can we do?
Nationwide.
Well, stop inflation from growing as it's growing already. 4%. Look, the fact of the matter is, mathematically, you can't incur another $4 trillion in loans. The economy can't sustain it based on the existing loan, based on what apparently will be future loans. It's an impossibility. It's an oxymoron. You can't have that kind of money. No longer has very much value. I don't want this to be the Weimar Republic where suddenly, in order to buy a loaf of bread, you got to show up at the store with bags full of money that's basically paper and worthless. So, you got to take these things into consideration. The problem is simply this. There's certain things I would mandate. And I don't like government mandating an awful lot of things. I really don't. But historically, things should be taught in the high schools that show the failures of other civilizations so that you don't make the same mistake. Rome's problems began from within. Greece, the same situation. And you go right on down the list of what were once great civilizations, but they destroyed themselves. And we seem to be going through that period right now. The dissension within. I've never seen the kind of dissension that exists in the country the way it does today. I mean, people are livid and, the Orientals are being challenged, Asia. A guy standing on a subway platform minding his own business and someone screams out, well, you're Chinese, and pushes him off the subway platform. It's not that person's fault because it's the Chinese Communist government. But see, there's where I fault a guy like Trump for fanning the fires by the Chinese virus. No, it's the Chinese government's virus, communist government. It's not the average person living in China who had any control over that situation. Because if you disagree with them, you know what happens. You disappear. You're shot or never heard from again. That's what happens under communism. So again, to take the venom out on any Chinese person that you see, or Oriental person, and start to attack them, that's a terrible thing. There's a lot of things wrong that existed in this country. There's no doubt about that. You could talk about slavery, horrendous. You broke up families. You all they ever got was a meal. They got nothing else. You could talk about the Chinese coolies who built the railroad basically from the east to the west. And They don't even know the number of Chinese coolies who died as a result of the work they did laying the track. So, you know, you can go on the American Indian. Look what we did to the American Indian. We took everything they had. All their oil-rich land's gone. They used the buffalo. We hunted the buffalo and almost made it an extinct species, you know? And then, you know, this country has had its own warts. There is no question about it. Nobody could justify slavery. That's an impossibility. Breaking entire families up, separating them, putting on different plantations, and they get nothing for their efforts except a meal. Come on, you know, I mean, look, our forefathers, my grandfather comes from Italy for many, many reasons, the outskirts of Naples, right? There was it. There was no way they could earn any money, so you came to this country for a chance. Your ancestors, the same thing. They're under oppression if they come from Russia. The Tsar is ruling, and that's it. They don't even have a life. They're lucky they can practice their own religion, and it goes on and on and on. So, you know, we're not exactly innocent either, and it's a great country. It is an incredible country. Opportunities are there for everyone.
Do you
Maybe
think
more so for others, but nevertheless, the opportunities are there.
Do you think the children of today will be better off than when you were a child?
Will they be better off? No, I don't think they're going to be better off. No, because I think the values that are being shown are contrary to what it really is all about. You know, again, you have a country here where you can really forge ahead. You can really get somewhere. If you put your nose to the grindstone, you can do it. You can be a success. I don't care who you are. And frankly, that's not what we're being taught. It's just not working. And it's a shame. You got to go back to some of the old values.
We have some poor role models in comparison to what we used to have.
Poor role models. You're absolutely right. But
the crime wave, and if it was pumped up due to the fact that a lot of the homeless were thrust back into the streets overnight while the subway is being cleaned. The subway system is being cleaned overnight, and the homeless are pushed back into the streets overnight now. From what I understand, the crime has been ramping up in Manhattan.
No, that's true. They're going to have to come up with a situation where the people that are homeless, right, they have to undergo psychiatric tests. And if they fail the test, whatever those tests are, and I'm far from an expert in that regard, right, they have to be placed in institutions, well cared for, but they can't be allowed out on the street. And they represent a clear and present danger to everyone else.
Need help.
Yes.
And they need help. They absolutely, if people want to deny the fact that they need help, well, they're just being foolish, because they do need help. They don't belong sleeping in the subways. They don't belong in a subway where they'll push someone off the platform or sucker punch someone who they never saw, don't even know, have nothing against. That's insanity. That's no way for a city to be run. But you've got a mayor who, frankly, he's a Democrat like me, but he's an embarrassment, total and complete embarrassment. The only alternative that exists here is the fellow who's running Edwards, right? He's the front runner, and I hope he wins the election, because I think he has the ability to begin to turn the city around, bring it back to some form of normalcy, far from what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to highlight that it's National Mental Health Awareness Month, and hence the green in the background. Also, this is the green screen. I'm supposed to be able to captivate all the different images and things. I was going to put a big red, white, and blue flag behind me in respect, in regard to, you know, you're being a politician thing, but I think this is appropriate. The green. You know, you hit so many different points. I'm curious as to whether or not you're in communication with any of the local politicians or any of the politicians that are in effect right now, because you can really shine some light on some good things, and I really hope that you inspire some of the current politicians. They really
Here's the irony of it. This morning I had breakfast, believe it or not. I've always been considered a maverick, and I've supported at times Republicans, primarily mostly Democrats, obviously, but there are several Republicans that I've supported because I believe what they say is important and they would do a good job in government if they were elected. Well, I had breakfast this morning, ironically, with a couple of Republicans. We're going to have a contest in Nassau County, which has almost 1.2 million people. It's one of the most populous counties in the country. And I'm going to be supporting the Republican who I know very well and who's seeking the office against an incumbent Democrat.
Oh boy.
But it's because I believe more in the Republican and the job that they're talking about doing than I do with the current Democratic county executive, who happens to be a nice person. It has nothing to do with personalities, but
Right.
it's the ability to run a government of that size.
Sure.
And that's me. But that doesn't mean I'm always right, believe me.
But that's what people liked you so much.
But I think the people always appreciated the fact that,
underdog.
you know, you were a maverick, an underdog, that you did what you thought was right. And I always did what I thought was right. I didn't get into politics to earn a lot of money, because that doesn't exist. If it does, you're doing something wrong. If you're earning a lot of money in politics, you got to take a close look at you. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So, you know, it'd be a great law. It'll never happen. I'd like to know the amount of money an individual has when they start in Congress, and I'd like to know how much money they have when they leave Congress. It'd be a fascinating thing to see how suddenly their fortunes have risen to extraordinary levels. You know, you can't take money out of politics. I understand that.
All right.
Because the cost for run for office, particularly a higher office like Congress, in a state like New York, if you don't have $2 million, don't even think about running for Congress, unless maybe in some of the upstate areas, you can run for a lot less money. So a lot of these people, they basically have to sell their soul just to run for office, and that's a shame. Huh?
Yeah, I remember Cory Booker was running for Congress when I was getting ready for Senate, back when I was leaving Newark. I used to teach in Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit involved. But like you said, you know, it'd be a very curious thing to find out what they walk away with. You know, a lot of times, you know, a lot of things happen under the table.
Can I ask you fellas a question? Now,
Yes.
I'm somewhat familiar with Governor Murphy. I know a little bit about Mr. Menendez, and I know obviously Cory Booker because he was a candidate for president. So I would know more about him based on what he said than the other two. But in terms of New Jersey, what do you fellas think about what should happen there? What's good for New Jersey? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So
well, New Jersey, the economic climate in New Jersey is not the best. There's very high property taxes here in New Jersey, and the governor is trying his best, his hardest to legalize marijuana. The taxes are high. The prospects for drugs are going to happen. They're going to be more prevalent now. They are already. I don't know. I don't like the governor. I don't like him. I didn't like the last governor either. And he was Republican. I don't like this governor, but that's just me.
He seemed to have started out on the right foot, but then, like many politicians, you fall in love with yourself and decide, I'm going to be president of the United States. You know, and look, there's nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself politically. I understand that. But I think you start to lose sight of the fact of the office that you're in and what has to be done. And that's unfortunate.
I think the school systems here in New Jersey are run wrong. I used to work in the school system here. Tommy did as well, but in some of my classes, I don't know about Tommy's school, we had 7 teachers and only 8 students.
What?
7 teachers in the classroom for 8 students. And I feel that's a waste of money. Each teacher was specialized to deal with a student or two. And I just feel if the salaries were $80,000 for each of those teachers, even if it was half of that, that's a lot of money. Even if it was only $40,000 times 8, that's a lot of money. That's what, $320,000? That's a lot of money.
Were the 7 teachers for 8 students, was that for special ed students?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh,
Yeah, special needs. Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you, with regard to local government where I am, I had since fled the state and moved down to South Florida. So I'm here with the good Governor DeSantis, and I say that, you know, a little bit of humana under my tone. You know, there's a lot going on down here. You know, we haven't really touched up on COVID and what's going on, but Governor DeSantis actually raised the mandation of wearing masks, and so now it's a free for all, and more or less, and there's no more curfews. Everything's open, and you have the option of wearing a mask if you go any place, in Florida. And I'm in South Florida, not far from Boca, and you know, it's you have a lot of influx of kids, a lot of transients coming in from different regions of the globe. Yeah, and I think it's just an unsafe and a very not well thought out plan. So I'm not too much of an advocate of the local government right now. I mean, just overall government down here. I think that things are kind of in disarray.
That's fair.
You know, the school systems, they did a hybrid model down here. You know, I think that it's great. I've listened to what's going on in New York as well, with parents having the option of sending their children to school or keeping them at home. Danny mentioned something earlier, and I'm just kind of trying to get some of the thoughts that I have as we've been running through these conversations. He mentioned the future, and I think that the future is, you know, we have a lot going on. There's testing that's going on right now, I know, for Floridians students with regard to the end of the year assessments, and they're still full speed ahead. So it's holding these kids accountable for a year's worth of work that they've been getting hybrid taught, you know, and some of this information, a lot of the information that's been fed to these students has been given to them while they're home, and no structure, you know, faulty equipment, and no concentration, and no socialization. So it's a lot going on, a lot of things to really hold the kids accountable for, and life goes on. And so these are going to be the future machine operators, judges, lawyers, Indian chiefs. And so I think that we have quite a bit of ground to try to make up for. I wouldn't have minded to see the school years stretched out, extended, you know, extended for maybe another month and a half. You know, do a model, stretch it out. I mean, you know, it's not about penalizing the kids. It's about, you know, strengthening our future. You know, and I think the bigger picture is something that folks really weren't looking at in government. I mean, you know, if anything, I think that they should have allotted a budget for that, because this is our future. You know, we have to consider.
You are so right. That is the future. If these kids have to be educated, but part of the education, as you said, also includes socialization, where you don't just do it virtually over a computer. You know, you need that interaction. That's part of the system. And unfortunately, the pandemic has affected everyone in that regard. But there's just certain things that should be done. And a lot of people are not focusing on that. And that's a problem, because that's the future. These kids are going to be running the country, and they better be prepared. And they're not going to be prepared if they're not being well educated. So, you know,
3 million people.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, it doesn't make sense.
3 million left New Jersey. And
can I just correct you for one thing? I know your property taxes are brutal in New Jersey. Just think of this: Nassau County's property taxes are worse. We're in the top 3.
Right.
Annually, we make the top 3 highest property tax areas in the entire 52 states.
Wow.
Crazy. Wow. Yeah. I think Hawaii tops us for some strange reason, which I don't know why.
Which presidents have you met?
Have I met? Well, Jimmy Carter, obviously. I never met Ronald Reagan, obviously. Oh, Bill Clinton, one of the most charming people I ever met. And Carol is going to attest to that because she's got this great picture with him that was just, he's a very charming guy. The interesting thing is this with Bill Clinton. We're at a small event, maybe 100 people tops, right? And Mario Cuomo is introducing Bill Clinton. Now, Mario Cuomo was a brilliant orator. Bill Clinton was not in that class in terms of being an orator, but he had his own charm about him. So when he got up to speak, you know, he made everyone in that room feel totally and completely comfortable. And he had that kind of down-home charm, right? Mm-hmm. It was just a very charming guy. And he was a competent president. You know, now not so much. He's tarnished with whatever's gone on in Hillary, and, you know, you can go on and on. Who did what to who? I really, that I don't know. But, let me tell you, his first term as president was a pretty good term. He accomplished a lot.
Have any of the presidents called you or counted on you for your support when they were running?
The Carter people reached out. Fritz Mondale, when he ran, which was prior to Carter, he reached out to me and others as well. It wasn't just me. I could tell you that. Bill Clinton's people did, very clearly.
What about when Hillary ran? When Hillary ran for president?
Believe it or not, yes. Her people did, and I met her. We were at the Dolans, right? Mm-hmm. There was an event for her at the people who owned Cablevision at the time, the Dolan family, and it was a very pleasant affair. She was fairly charming, but she just never seemed to register with the public for whatever the reasons were. And there's probably a million reasons for that. Towards the end, I don't think she was half the person she was originally. You know, it gets to a point where you become pathological about the office that you're seeking, and you're going to get it at any cost. And I think that's kind of what happened to her. She lost sight of really just being an individual who was going to do the right thing for the public.
Do you think they should ban politicians from speaking on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media outlets?
Okay, only if they preach violence, or only if they preach insurrection, overtaking the country by force. Those things should not be allowed. However, they're entitled to their opinion. And frankly, they could be on social media. That's what democracy is all about. You have a right to say what you believe. Now, I may not agree with you, but that doesn't mean you don't have the right to say it. But I'll use Maxine Waters, who bordered on as close to what would be an insurrection as I've ever seen. And her rhetoric was very, very difficult. But at times, Trump's rhetoric was also extremely difficult. So, but I don't think it should be banned.
What about
Twitter,
Maxine,
Facebook, or any of these?
What about when Maxine Waters ordered people to make a crowd and push back on them?
Now that's
them in a restaurant, push back.
That is as close to inciting a riot as you could possibly get without being charged. You know, and she may have been well-intentioned in trying to force the point, but you don't do it that way. That's not what the Constitution provides.
Lew, what about the Obama administration? What are your thoughts about during that term? Was the country in a good situation and good standings? The transition beyond the Obama regime, that was...
Well, that's a very good question. I have mixed emotions about that. I think he tried to do some very good things, but again, I think not to compare him to Trump, because two totally different personalities. Trump was my way or the highway. Obama seemed to be more of an individual who was willing to listen to you, but still did it his way anyway. Not a bad president. Not one of our best presidents, but not a bad president.
in your opinion, who was the best president in your lifetime?
Oh God, there are a lot. I think
Your
Harry
life.
Truman. Harry Truman was probably my favorite. I've read every book that was ever published about Harry Truman. And what I admired about him most was he did things his way, but he was just amazing in that if you wrote Harry Truman a letter, personal letter, and asked him for his opinion on something, if it was deemed to be political or anything that was personal, he put his own postage stamp on the letter. He wouldn't use the franking privileges. He leaves office. He drives himself back to Missouri with his wife. The amount of money that was allotted for an ex-president on retirement was so low that Congress got together and said, hey, this is absolutely ridiculous. We can't allow an ex-president to survive on this limited income because he wasn't an attorney and he had no business of any kind. He did when he was younger, but not when he was president. So he was one of the best. For anybody to stand there with MacArthur and say, look, I'm the commander in chief. We're not going to invade Manchuria. We just got through a brutal Second World War. And I think the public would react very negatively, and it's not something we should be involved in. MacArthur being a general, that was his training, right? He wouldn't want to attack anybody. I'm not demeaning MacArthur. I'm just saying, you know, it's like whatever profession you're in, that's what you're pursuing. Well, you're a general. You're very happy with wars. That's what you do. That's your training. That doesn't mean you should be involved in every war.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I really do appreciate this discussion. I want to find out if there are any takeaways that you can give the American people concerning how we're moving through this pandemic, the hopes for a better tomorrow, and just some takeaways that you may have for us.
Well, if everything I'm reading, which I hope is true, we're in the process of overcoming the pandemic. Now, hopefully there isn't some other strain that comes along that we're not prepared for, that no one is prepared for. It's not a criticism. You got to get back to some, as best you can, normal life. We seem to be doing it faster than almost any other country, which frankly is a good thing. So there is some hope for the future, in my opinion. But again, you hit it before, and you said it very well. Education. You've got to get these kids back in the classroom. You've got to get them to a point where they're actually learning. And that's the future. Our children are the future. There's no question about that. So they should be our first priority.
Police.
And you know,
absolutely.
You've also got to do one other thing. Look, understand something very clearly, right? You have an incredible number of people. I don't know how many police officers there are in the entire country. New York City police force is about 35,000, right? There's always going to be a percentage that shouldn't be there.
Sure.
Whether there are a certain percentage of doctors, you know, malpractice. There are a certain percentage of attorneys who take escrow money when they shouldn't. There are a certain percentage of accountants, you know, who do things they shouldn't do. There's always going to be a percentage in any profession whatsoever that are bad apples and shouldn't be there. That's also true for the police. But weed them out through a system where you don't get some of these police who are just brutal and really want to inflict harm on people. That can't be accepted either. So you got to make some reforms, but you got to have respect for your police. You've got to allow them to enforce the law in the right way. No question about it. Now, I don't know how you can account for riots that occur where you burn down businesses and you break in and you leave with an arm full of Rolex watches from Tourneau or something, and the police stand idly by because they're told to stand down and do nothing. That makes no sense to me at all. That's the beginning of anarchy. It really is. So, you know, we've got some tough times ahead of us.
But he wanted positive. He wanted something positive.
Positive thing is it will change. It definitely will change. I think if Eric Adams is elected mayor of New York City, you'll begin to see that kind of a change occur in a very rational way. And that's a good thing. That's what you need, a good moderate.
All right. All right.
What the hell?
Sure. There you
So
are.
I don't know. I don't know Eric Adams, but if it's an endorsement for Eric Adams, if I lived in the city, I would vote for him.
Are you happy with the current election system? Do you think we should have mail-in ballots?
Well, you're always going to have mail-in ballots. The question is how you correct them. Now, believe it or not, New York State is pretty good in that regard. Your mail-in ballot, you have to sign the outside and the inside. So it goes through a pretty good process. But if you're going to have mail-in ballots where anyone can vote and vote as often as they want because there's no checks and balances, well, that's ridiculous. That system could work in a banana republic. It won't work well in this country if you do that. So you've got legislation in Congress pending that unfortunately appears to do that. That legislation should not pass. But let me just kind of, I guess we're all getting ready to go, right?
Yes.
Understand in government. In government, the best thing that you can have, in my opinion, is a two-party government where there's a checks and balance system. You have any one political party, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, in total and complete control. That's not a good thing for the general public. Not at all. You need the compromise to be made for government to move ahead and do the things it's supposed to be doing, which is be concerned with the people that put you in office. That's the most important thing. So there's hope at the end, because this government won't last. I think in the next election, you're going to see a turnover in the House of Representatives, Congress. And at that point, I think you'll have, the give and take situation.
And because of program.
I like your program. I'd be happy to come back. As soon as we get 100,000 hits.
Hey,
and they say, Tommy, we want you on prime time. But leave that guy rolling out.
Listen, I'll tell you something. You know, from the goodness of my heart, I've stepped to this microphone. You know, my wife and I, we've been in education for a long time. And, when I was hit with COVID and I was hit with the loss of my mother, I realized I have to get out here for the people. So similar to yourself, I don't look for any check. I don't look for anything. I just look for, goodness to come back into my life. And I want to be in a safe space as I walk these streets and I get out here and move about the planet. And so I just want the qualified people to be out there, and in terms of, the numbers are climbing. The numbers are always going to be on the rise, because I believe that the underdog will always prevail. So, I think you landed in a good space. You're definitely a friend to the show, Lewis. And
I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
You're welcome back anytime.
Tommy, we need more people like you and more shows like this. We really do, because it's an open forum. It's a great forum. It's an honest forum. And you got a great way with words and with people.
And Danny.
And Danny, too. I mean, you guys make a good team.
Danny's great. Bring people together, do you think? And we could all get along, maybe? What do you think?
Yeah.
Is
famous
that
words, right? We should all get along.
We will.
And you know what, Danny?
Little dissension, but we're going to get along. We're going to work it out.
And if our words don't do it, Danny, pull out the sax.
That's right. Sax man Dan. Hey, Tommy, it really was a pleasure. I really mean that. I enjoyed it.
I thank you so much, sir, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening and stay safe.
And thank you, Danny, for inviting me. I do appreciate it. I had my moment of fame here, so this is great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Carol, you want to say anything? No? How about good night?
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Nara.
Thanks again.
Good night.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. supports muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, powerful liver support, energy, helps blood sugar regulation, superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the market.